There you are, slacking off again. My mother-in-law's voice cut through the peaceful afternoon. I looked up from folding laundry to see her standing in the doorway of my modest two-bedroom apartment, uninvited as usual. Behind her, my sister-in-law Isabella smirked, twirling her designer handbag. "Hello, Margaret," I said politely, continuing to fold my husband Daniel's work shirts. After 3 years of marriage, I had learned that engaging with her criticism only made things worse. "Well, since you're not doing anything important," Margaret continued, making herself comfortable on my couch without asking. "I came to discuss the annual family vacation to Pine Lake Cottage." My heart sank. Every year, the family spent 2 weeks at Margaret's mother's old cottage by the lake, and every year, I was conveniently excluded. "Mom's planned everything perfectly," Isabella chimed in, examining her manicured nails. "We're having the chef from Le Blanc cater this time. You remember him, right? From my engagement party that you couldn't attend." Of course I remembered. I wasn't invited to that either. About the vacation, Margaret said, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "I'm afraid it will have to be family only again this year. You understand, don't you? It's tradition." I glanced at the family photo on my wall. Daniel and me on our wedding day. "I am family," I said quietly. "I've been married to Daniel for 3 years." Margaret's face hardened. "Marriage certificates don't make real family, dear. Blood does. And speaking of Daniel, he agrees it's best if you stay home. He needs time with his real family." I felt my chest tighten. Daniel had been distant lately, working late hours and barely talking to me. Now I knew why. Besides, Isabella added with a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes, "Someone needs to water the plants and feed the cats while we're gone. We'll be leaving next Friday." After they left, I sat among the half-folded laundry, fighting back tears. Daniel came home late that night, smelling of expensive whiskey. "Your mother stopped by," I said as he loosened his tie. "About the family vacation." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Look, Emma, it's just easier this way. Mom gets stressed when outsiders are there. It's only 2 weeks." "Outsiders?" I echoed. "I'm your wife." "You know what I mean," he mumbled, heading for the shower. "Don't make this difficult." The next morning, Daniel left early for work. I called in sick to my job at the library and drove to their house, determined to drop off the stack of books Isabella had borrowed months ago and never returned. Margaret was probably at her yoga class, and Isabella would be at her very important social media influencer job. The spare key was still hidden under the garden gnome. Inside, the house was silent except for the tick of the antique grandfather clock. I headed upstairs to Isabella's old room, now her content creation studio, where she filmed makeup tutorials. The books weren't on her shelves. Sighing, I remembered Isabella mentioning storing some things in the attic when she converted her room. I found the pull-down attic stairs and climbed up, phone flashlight in hand. The attic was a maze of dusty furniture and boxes. In one corner, I spotted a box labeled Bella's Books. But as I reached for it, something else caught my eye. A small pink diary with a broken lock, half hidden under an old quilt. I recognized it immediately. Isabella had carried it everywhere when she was younger, writing in it obsessively. Daniel used to tease her about it. My hands trembled as I picked it up, knowing I shouldn't read it but unable to resist. The first few pages were typical teenage drama. Boys, friends, complaints about school. But then I found an entry from 6 years ago, when Isabella was 19. "Mom's plan is brilliant. When Grandma Beatrice gets back from her cruise, Mom's going to convince her to sign over the cottage and all her accounts to us. Grandma's getting so forgetful lately, she probably won't even remember doing it. Then we'll have everything, the summer house, the trust fund, all of it. Mom says we deserve it more than those other relatives anyway." My heart pounded as I flipped through more pages. Grandma B signed everything over today. She was confused about some of the papers, but Mom told her they were just routine documents about property taxes. I feel a little bad, but Mom says Grandma would want us to have everything. Besides, she's so rich, she'll never miss it. Then, an entry from a few months later. Disaster. Grandma B's lawyer called. Apparently there's another will from last year that leaves everything to charity. Mom's freaking out. We have to find it before anyone else does. She thinks it might be hidden at the cottage somewhere. That's why we started doing these long family vacations there every year, so we can search while pretending it's just tradition. I sat back against a dusty trunk, my mind racing. Margaret and Isabella had manipulated Beatrice into signing over her property while she was confused and vulnerable. But there was another will out there somewhere, the real will, hidden at the cottage they visited every year. Suddenly, the attic stairs creaked. "Hello?" Isabella's voice drifted up. "Is someone up there?" I shoved the diary into my bag and grabbed a random box of books. "Just me." I called down, trying to keep my voice steady. "Returning your books." "What are you doing in our attic?" she demanded as I climbed down. Her face was flushed with anger, or was it fear? "Sorry, you mentioned storing them up there," I said, handing her the box. "I should have asked first." She snatched it from me. "You had no right to go snooping around. Mom will hear about this." "I wasn't snooping," I lied. "I was just looking for the books." But as I drove home, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I had proof of their deception now, proof they had stolen an old woman's property through manipulation and lies. And somewhere in that cottage, there was a will that could expose everything. No wonder they didn't want me on their family vacation, but this year would be different. I wasn't going to let them get away with it anymore. I just had to figure out how to get into that cottage and find the will before they did. That evening, I carefully photographed every page of Isabella's diary before hiding it in my desk drawer. Then I did something I'd been avoiding for months. I called my husband's grandmother, Beatrice. The phone rang 4 times before a bright voice answered. "Hello, Grandma Beatrice. It's Emma, Daniel's wife." "Emma, darling." Her voice warmed. "I've missed you at the family gatherings. Margaret keeps saying you're too busy to come." My heart ached. "Actually, I've been trying to reach you. Are you free for lunch tomorrow?" "Of course. But let's not tell Margaret. She gets so fussy about my schedule these days." The next day, I met Beatrice at a small cafe far from Margaret's usual haunts. Despite Isabella's diary entries about her being forgetful, Grandma B was sharp as ever. "Something's troubling you," she said after we ordered. "I can see it in your eyes." I took a deep breath. "Do you remember signing any papers for Margaret last year, about the cottage or your accounts?" Beatrice's face darkened. She said they were routine property documents. "But lately, I've noticed I can't access some of my accounts." When I asked about it, Margaret said she's protecting my assets. "There's something else," I said carefully. "Did you make a will last year, before signing those papers?" "Yes." Beatrice's eyes lit up. "With my old lawyer, Mr. Patterson. I left most everything to charitable foundations." Margaret was furious when she found out. But then Mr. Patterson retired suddenly, and the will disappeared from his office. I showed her the diary photos on my phone. As she read, her hands began to shake. "Those manipulative," she whispered. I knew something was wrong, but I never imagined. She looked up at me. "The real will is still out there. I hid a copy at the cottage before Margaret started controlling everything." "Where exactly?" "In my old writing desk. There's a false bottom in the top drawer. But they've never let me visit alone since then." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'm going to help you make this right." "Be careful, dear," she warned. "Margaret's more dangerous than she appears." Back home, I found Daniel waiting. "Isabella said you were snooping in our attic," he accused. "Is that what she told you?" I kept my voice calm. I was returning her books. "Mom thinks you should stay with your sister while we're at the cottage. 2 weeks apart might do us good." I studied my husband's face, the man I'd fallen in love with, now a stranger under his mother's influence. "Actually, I need to visit my grandmother next week. She's been ill." Daniel looked relieved. "Perfect. That works out better for everyone." After he left for work the next morning, I called my friend Olivia, who worked at the same country club as Margaret. "I need a favor." An hour later, Olivia texted, "Overgird your MIL changing her plans. They're leaving for the cottage this Friday instead of next week. Something about taking care of business before the real vacation starts." They were moving up their plans. I had to act fast. I packed a small bag and drove to the cottage Thursday night, using the spare key Beatrice had given me during lunch. The old lake house was dark and silent, moonlight reflecting off the water. Inside, I found the writing desk in Beatrice's old study. Heart pounding, I felt along the top drawer until I found the catch for the false bottom. Suddenly, car headlights swept across the windows. I grabbed the envelope from the hidden compartment just as a key turned in the front door. The lawyer said someone's been asking questions. Margaret's voice carried down the hall. We need to find that will tonight. I tucked the envelope into my jacket and slipped behind a heavy curtain, barely breathing as footsteps approached. Check everywhere, Margaret ordered. That interfering girl must have found something in the attic. Why else would she visit Beatrice? Mom, Isabella's voice wavered. Maybe we should just tell the truth. And lose everything. The money, the cottage, our reputation. Keep searching. I pressed myself against the wall as they moved around the room. Isabella opened the desk drawer right in front of my hiding spot. The false bottom's been opened, she gasped. Someone's already been here. Margaret swore. Call your brother. Tell him to keep his wife away from the house when she returns. I don't care what he has to do. My blood ran cold. What exactly were they suggesting Daniel do? They searched for another hour before giving up. After their car disappeared down the drive, I waited an extra 15 minutes before creeping out. The envelope contained exactly what Beatrice had promised, her real will, leaving the cottage and most of her fortune to various charities, with only modest provisions for her family. There was also a letter describing how Margaret had pressured her into signing over her assets. But as I drove home in the dark, my phone buzzed with messages from Daniel. Where are you? Mom said you're causing trouble. Come home now. We need to talk. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Beatrice. I found it, I whispered. But they know someone has it. They want Daniel to keep me away from the house. Don't go home, she said firmly. Come to me. I've already called Mr. Patterson. He's coming out of retirement for this case. I turned onto the highway, the precious envelope safe beside me. Behind me, headlights appeared. A car moving too fast, getting closer. I recognized Daniel's BMW. I have to go, I told Beatrice, my heart racing. Someone's following me. The real showdown was about to begin. Daniel's BMW kept pace behind me, flashing its high beams. My phone buzzed repeatedly with his calls. I knew if I pulled over, Margaret and Isabella wouldn't be far behind. Rain started falling as I took the exit toward Beatrice's gated community. Daniel was still on my tail, but now another car had joined him. Margaret's silver Mercedes. My hands trembled as I punched in the security code Beatrice had given me. The gates opened painfully slowly, and I scraped through just before they closed, leaving Daniel and Margaret trapped outside. Beatrice was waiting at her door with an elderly man I assumed was Mr. Patterson. Get inside quickly, she urged. We watched through the windows as security turned Daniel and Margaret away. My phone kept ringing. Perhaps you should answer, Mr. Patterson suggested. On speaker. I took a deep breath and accepted the call. Where's the will? Daniel demanded. Safe, I replied, with its rightful owner and her lawyer. Don't be stupid, Emma, Margaret's voice cut in. She was obviously with him. Think about your marriage. Think about your future. I am thinking about my future, I said firmly, and I won't let you threaten me or steal from Beatrice anymore. Steal? Daniel sounded genuinely confused. What are you talking about? Ask your mother about the documents she tricked Grandma Beatrice into signing. Ask Isabella about her diary entries describing the whole plan. There was a long pause, then muffled voices arguing. Those documents were legal, Margaret protested. Beatrice signed them willingly. While you were hiding the existence of her real will, I countered. The one that leaves everything to charity, the one you've been searching the cottage for. Daniel, Beatrice spoke up. Come inside. Alone. It's time you learned the truth about your mother's schemes. We waited tensely until Daniel appeared at the door, soaked from the rain. His face was pale as he read Isabella's diary entries and the letter Beatrice had hidden with her will. All those times you excluded Emma, Beatrice said softly. All those family-only vacations. They were just cover for searching the cottage, weren't they? Daniel sank into a chair. I didn't know, he whispered. Mom said Emma was trying to come between us, that she was just after the family money. The only one after money was your mother, Mr. Patterson said. These documents she had Beatrice sign would have left you all quite wealthy, at the expense of several children's hospitals and research foundations Beatrice has supported for years. Headlights appeared in the driveway again. Isabella's car this time. But she wasn't alone. A police car pulled in behind her. I called them, Isabella said when she came inside, avoiding her mother's furious glare. I couldn't live with the guilt anymore. I've given them my statement about everything Mom did. Margaret was arrested that night for elder abuse and financial fraud. Mr. Patterson filed papers to void all the documents she had manipulated Beatrice into signing. The next morning, Daniel and I sat in our apartment, the silence heavy between us. I should have trusted you, he said finally. Instead, I let Mom poison everything. Yes, you should have, I agreed. Your mother's actions were terrible, but you chose to believe her lies about me. He nodded slowly. I know sorry isn't enough, but I want to try to make things right, if you'll let me. It will take time, I said. And counseling. Both of us together. Anything you promised. I won't let anyone come between us again. 1 month later, we all gathered at the cottage. Daniel, Isabella, Beatrice, and me. Margaret was awaiting trial, her scheme exposed to everyone. I'm selling the cottage, Beatrice announced over lunch on the deck. The money will go to the children's hospital, as I always intended. Good, Isabella said. It's time for a fresh start. But Beatrice continued with a twinkle in her eye. I've bought a new lake house just down the shore. Big enough for all my family to vacation together. She smiled at me. No more family-only events. From now on, we make memories together. That evening, as Daniel and I walked along the beach, he asked, "Do you think we'll be okay?" I watched the sunset reflecting off the lake, thinking about everything that had happened. The past months had been hard, but they'd also shown me my own strength and revealed who my true family was. Yes, I said, squeezing his hand. I think we will be. Isabella was setting up a bonfire with Beatrice, both of them laughing about something. No more secrets, no more schemes, no more exclusion. Just family, real family, enjoying each other's company. Sometimes the truth hurts when it comes out. But as I watched the people I loved gathered around the growing fire, I knew it had set us all free.